Alright, today's topic is a little interesting. Are motorcycles really that dangerous? Now, I want to answer this question by starting off with some statistics and also giving you guys my opinions, because I ride a decent amount, not as much as some of you guys, and not as much of as some of you guys roast me for in the comment section, saying I don't ride my bikes. But I do have quite a few motorcycles and have been riding for a few years now, and I always consider the risk factor of riding a motorcycle and weighing my pros and cons of whether this is worth it or not. For a lot of people, I mean, they don't even consider the risk factor of a motorcycle because they'd rather ride and just live with the consequences of it. But for someone who is considering some of the risk factors, or maybe you're just wondering how you can possibly reduce some of the risk factor of riding a motorcycle and be a safer rider, let's talk about it a little bit. The first statistic that I really want to talk about is single motorcycle crashes. That means that no one else is involved, a motorcycle hitting a motorcycle, or a motorcycle hitting a car, or obstacles in the road, stuff like that. Nothing else is involved except rider error and just the rider binning their motorcycle. Now, single motorcycle crashes represent anywhere between 15 and 25%. The percentages I'm about to give you vary from place to place, vary from year to year, and it's very hard to get an exact statistic, so it's kind of a little bit of a rough number. But 15 to 25% is solely due to rider error. If we break down that statistic of solo motorcycle crashes, we can break it down into two different segments. Number one is going to be on a curve, and number two is going to be in a straight road like this. Crashes on a straight road represent about 30 to 40% of solo motorcycle crashes. Yeah, people just binning them on straight roads because of rider error. Maybe there was something in the road, maybe there was something else going on, the bike was too much for them to handle, they were doing something stupid. Whatever the case may be, it was rider error for the most part when it comes down to that statistic, and most of those things can be prevented. Now, the other 70 to 60% of solo motorcycle crashes are because of riders crashing on a curve. Now, that statistic is very big because think about it. The hardest part about riding is predicting a curve, but taking corners is hard, especially for beginners that might not be able to calculate how much you have to lean, how fast you have to be going, and also how much you have to stop before the curve. Because obviously when you hit a corner, you have to stop before you hit the corner, slow down to an appropriate speed, and then take the corner. You can't slow down once you're in a corner because that will make your bike want to kick out. So most of these accidents are happening on these curves because they're going too fast. They were unable to predict the curve. They didn't slow down enough, which also is they're going too fast. But people misinterpret how fast they should be going into corners and end up steering off the road and getting into an accident. Now, you can reduce this by going a little slower. You can reduce that rate, and you can reduce your chances of getting into a crash by simply paying more attention and being a better rider and gaining more experience behind a motorcycle. Now, I won't say that 100% of these accidents could be prevented. I wasn't there, but also sometimes you just overcalculate or miscalculate a turn. And it happens to everyone. It happens to professional riders on racetracks sometimes. So there's almost no way that you can predict every corner perfectly, and sometimes a crash just can't be helped. But what we can do to reduce your chances of getting into an accident like that is to just be a better rider, to learn how to operate the motorcycle better, learn the controls better, things like that. Just make yourself a better rider and a more cautious rider. That only represents about 25-30%. I think I said 15 to 25% of crashes is solo accidents. A very large majority of motorcycle accidents, making up nearly 30%, is cars cutting motorcycles off because they didn't see them. For an example, a car taking a left turn cutting in front of me here would be one of those statistics. A car going straights, roundabouts, things like that, that represents about 30% of motorcycle crashes. Now, you can prevent that statistic. You ride like you cannot be seen. If there was a car here, for example, I would be going extremely cautious, watching their every move, to see if they're going to go and cut me off, preparing myself to brake or accelerate if I get close enough to the point where acceleration is my only way out. Looking at my escapes. Can I escape to the right? Can I escape to the left? Can I escape straight? You got to be watching all of your possible angles to ensure that if the car does cut you off, where can you escape to? Not every accident can be preventable. Like I was saying, sometimes they cut you off and they're just a little bit too close. And unfortunately, that is one of the risks that you have to weigh while riding. But you can make riding more safe. For example, the riding that I've been doing right now has been very low traffic. There's not really anyone around. And for the most part, it's just me and my bike. And you know, this is how I like to ride. Just by myself, just out in the open, low risk. Unless I'm doing something stupid, I should be fine as long as I make sure to be careful of animals around and also the couple other cars, watching them to make sure that they don't cut me off. Now, the second to last statistic I would like to add is motorcycles sitting at stop signs, sitting at red lights, being rear-ended. That makes up about 15% of the statistic. There's nothing you can really do to prevent that, except ride in areas that are low traffic. But for some of us, we don't have that luxury. For some of us, we ride as transportation. Well, whatever the case may be, you just can't go out onto the country lanes all the time and you ride in the city. It's just how you position your motorcycle, watching your mirrors is the best you can do. That's basically all you can do. Now, there's not much you can do. I mean, if you're stopped at the stop sign and a car is going to come and wham you in the back, I mean, maybe you can catch it in your mirror and pull off to the side before he hits you too badly, or hits you at all if you're lucky enough. Now the final statistic, the part that makes up the rest of the percentage of motorcycle accidents. Things in the road, people in the road, potholes, gravel, just things that would make a motorcycle crash. Debris in the road. I mean, you're on two wheels, you're on these skinny little two wheels. If you hit something hard enough, you're gonna fall off, your bike's gonna send you flying, whatever the case is. A kid walks in front of you and you gotta dump your bike in order to not hit the kid. Dog comes after you. I don't know, those are a couple scenarios that I just come to mind. But those scenarios happen and you'll dump your motorcycle because of it. Most of the time, unless you're going high speeds and you end up on a bump that's super big, or a piece of wood hits you, or a piece of wood gets under your tire, or you're taking a corner and there's loose debris and gravel on the side of the road, most of the time you should be okay if you're going slow enough. Now, we are doing some corners, and like I'm saying, just because you want to reduce your risk factor doesn't mean you can't have fun. And we'll move on to my opinions in just a second. So here's what I kind of think it boils down to as a rider and the risk factor that's involved while riding a motorcycle. Number one is how you adapt and how defensive of a rider you are. I'm a defensive driver when I drive my cars. I don't want anyone to crash into me. I don't care if I have insurance. I don't care that I'm going to be okay. I don't want anything bad happening to my cars. You know, I put a lot of time and put a lot of effort into making them look how they look. Driving nice sports cars, I care for them. So I would rather be a defensive rider, be a defensive driver, save my life on a bike, save my life perhaps in one of my cars, or just save my car from having to be totaled or having to fix it because of someone else's mistakes. If a car's parked there, I'm going to be watching them like a hawk. I'm going to be watching the opposite side of traffic like a hawk to make sure that they don't do anything silly, to make sure that they don't end up cutting me off, to make sure that they don't just not see me and be oblivious to the fact that there is a motorcycle next to them. And now it happens. People will miss you. It just depends how defensive of a rider you are. If you be defensive, that doesn't mean you can't have fun. But if you're defensive, you learn that people can't see you, you assume that no one can see you, you assume you're invisible, you're going to end up reducing your risk factor a ton. If you try to avoid city streets, busy cities as much as you can, even though it might not be possible and you might prefer to ride like that, it's fine. You ride on highways, you go 100 miles per hour, you go 150 miles per hour, you're increasing your own risk, which is fine if you're aware that you're increasing your own risk and that's a risk you're willing to take. The thing that I would like to mention is the second thing, the thing that I think that a lot of people see, and a lot of people are like, oh my god, motorcycles are so dangerous. Did you hear that this guy died on his motorcycle? Most of the time, I'd say a bigger majority of the time that I see, it's usually a rider error. And that's not to say that all of them are, because there are a large majority, unfortunately, of motorcyclists who do lose their lives because of someone else's incompetence. You know, someone else runs a red light, someone else cuts them off, someone else does something stupid. But that's something you can't control other than being a defensive rider. But there is another part of it. Guys who hop on their first motorcycle, something like this, or even faster, with over 100 horsepower, over 1,000 cc's, and they ride like an absolute idiot and just go as fast as possible. You see the videos on Instagram all the time, people cutting through lanes, people going 140 miles per hour. Nothing wrong with that, it actually looks like a whole lot of fun, but the risk is insane. What if a car doesn't see you and a car changes lanes? You're done. People run red lights, motorcyclists running from cops, running red lights, running stop sign. Each one of those things adds a risk. You run a red light or a stop sign, what if there's a car coming? You're going 70, 80 miles per hour. You don't have enough time to think if that car is gonna clip you, or if that car is close enough, or if that car is far enough. You run a stop sign, you don't know. And that's a risk that you have to think, is this really worth it? And if you think it's worth it, I mean, no problems, more power to you. But you don't have to ride like that. Not all riding is full throttle, full acceleration, you know, all or nothing. I guess what I'm trying to say is you guys have to choose how you ride. If you want to be an insanely defensive rider, you want to just have fun, putz around, there's nothing wrong with that. The risk factor statistically is a lot lower than going, you know, 150 down the highway, running from cops, doing all those things. And that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Of course, not all the accidents happen like that. There's some accidents you can't prevent, and I'm not trying to say that a large majority of accidents are because of rider error, but that's a little breakdown on some of the statistics of how accidents happen, how you can prevent it, how you, if you're a better rider, you can probably prevent most solo accidents or a larger part of the solo accidents. And I hope that you guys ride safe. I hope that I didn't start a war in the comment section, and perhaps if I did, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it. And as always, if you guys did enjoy this video, leave me a like, subscribe to the channel, watch another video. I'll see you guys in the next one.